For anyone out there who's wondering if they should get this game, then let me just say one thing before you do. I found out the time I was writing this that BioWare have decided to ditch any plans of making any further DLCs for this game. Why is that, you ask? Well, if this game was amazeballs, then surely they'd keep it up. Now, I recorded that a few days ago, but since then, there's been a new announcement from BioWare. Not only is there going to be no more DLCs, but no more single player support either. The only thing they'll look at is the multiplayer, which just goes to show what BioWare thinks of it too. Yeah, this is going to be a negative rant, I'm afraid. And it's about time too, because we haven't had one of those for a while. Mass Effect 1 came out in 2007. It was really well received in that it let us go planet hopping through the galaxy in a spaceship that we commanded, where a complete bastard of a turncoat is trying to sell humanity and all of the other dirty alien races down the river to another race of aliens, or possibly machines, it's not clear at this point, so that they can wipe all of us out Emperor Palpatine style. For those of you who haven't played Mass Effect 1 but have played some of BioWare's other titles, then imagine Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1, but with better graphics, better combat, and a not as decent but still good story. Then this was followed up by Mass Effect 2 and 3 to complete the trilogy, and all in all, I can safely put my hands on my heart, look over at the national flag, and thank God that I was born in this day and age so that I could play this series. I thought the number 1 was pretty good for a first entry into the franchise. The plot and setting was interesting enough that even when I encountered a new race of aliens or a new story element, I didn't feel overwhelmed because everything felt relevant and important. Similarly, most of the characters were able to make an impact on the story as well. Including Shepard, each character felt different and unique, and even when coming into contact with another member of a particular race, at no point did it feel like this new person was just a generic clone taken from the gene pool. Though one Turian may look very similar to the next one... looks like I'm being racist to aliens here. I guarantee you that if you were to get a large group of Turians together, you'd still be able to pick Garrus out of the crowd in a heartbeat. All of this made the player want to explore, to want to read every datapad and article that we found. Though this setting is far removed from our own, it was so interesting that we wanted to become invested in it. There's this sense of scientific fascination going on here, and the game does play towards this very well. Humanity has recently discovered the mass relays, and has been thrust forward thousands of years in technological terms into the future. Humanity is still new to everything around them, as it is to us, and this in turn ignites the thirst for knowledge that dwells within us. Mass Effect 2 managed to take everything that was right with the first game and improve upon it. However, I'd say that one of the second game's most notable achievements was that it also recognised what was wrong with the first game, and knew what to bring over and what to get rid of. Landing on a planet in the first game and driving around sounded like fun in theory, but the execution of it was a bit of a letdown in my own opinion. You get in your little vehicle, drive around for a bit, find somewhere to park, and then either go into a building, or pick up an object and then drive the fuck back. I found these parts to be a complete waste of time because it detracted attention away from the good stuff. I didn't want to drive around an empty map for several minutes. I wanted to go and explore new cities and locations, and shoot some stuff. I wanted to be at the Citadel, listening to the Council act like wankers, and then go hit up Anderson afterwards and gossip about how the Council are all wankers. Or even picking up a side mission and getting shot at in a slum. It gave a more narrow focus towards the game's universe, and as such, it gave this universe depth. It felt like it was alive, and that even if I get sent out on a mission and leave the Citadel behind, then even while I'm gone, stuff is still happening. Immersion is the word I'm looking for. This series had great immersion. Like I said, number 2 far improved upon what number 1 did, and is my personal favourite in the series. Mass Effect 3 was also really good, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yes, the ending was total shite, but that was about it. The rest of it is still 24-carat goodness. I think the Mass Effect 3's problem was that it had created such an epic tale that no ending was ever going to do it justice. It's just that the endings we did get were bad anyway. And that was the Mass Effect trilogy. Commander Shepard's story gets concluded, the galaxy was saved, and he manages to tell everyone on board the Normandy that they'll bang, okay? Then after a few years, BioWare announced that they were developing a new Mass Effect title. Really? I thought initially. The series is done, do we really need another title? You don't want to start overdoing it, and if you don't believe me, then just take a look at Assassin's Creed. "No, it's okay," says the people at BioWare. "This new game is set in the same universe, but it's a completely different story." "Ah, I see," I said. "Well, in that case, I'm gonna keep my eye on you and wait for the reviews to come out." And then the reviews came out and what the fuck? Mass Effect Andromeda? 6 out of 10? What happened? A 6 out of 10 is quite a middle of the road score. What went wrong? Well, that's what I thought at the start, but after playing this game, my attitude changed to 6 out of 10? Bollocks, mate. 4 out of 10. That's a fair score for it. Several things went wrong, it turns out, as I played this game for the first time recently. Now, I'm not one to take mainstream reviews to heart. I'll always read the reviews before getting a game, and then make my own decision whether I'll get it or not. You see, I've always felt that you should take reviews with a pinch of salt. And if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, then you know that when it comes to my reviews, you need about as much salt with you to kill around 10 slugs. There have been times when a game gets bad reviews, but I ended up liking it anyway. And then there are times where a game gets great reviews, and I just can't agree with it at all. We'll have our own opinions, so perhaps I'll like Mass Effect Andromeda, I thought. Though I wasn't going to take that risk at the £45 asking price. Much love to one of my friends who gifted me this game. Having said that, they're either a really good friend or they're just taking the piss considering what happened next. Look, don't get me wrong, Mass Effect Andromeda isn't exactly a terrible game, but at the same time it's certainly not a good game. Fuck, where to begin with this one? Alright, first of all, the story. You are part of an expedition team consisting of around 20,000 people, and you make up one of 4 groups who have opted to have themselves frozen for 600 years while you travel to the neighbouring galaxy of Andromeda. Upon awakening, you find that out of the 4 groups, only the one you're on is accounted for and everything is falling apart. In addition to that, your dad is freelancing again and should probably pack it in before he gets hurt, and now he's dead. And because he owned a Nissan Pathfinder, you've inherited his car and everyone now calls you by that title. It's just as well he didn't own a Citroen C3 Picasso, because that would have made conversations awkward. So now that you're the Pathfinder, it's your job to locate worlds that can support life, or if that's not on the table, then somewhere to terraform. As well as looking for your dad's lost memories that are located on various planets that he's never been to. I don't even get how that works. Looking for documents for a guy who can easily find them himself, looking into a supposed murder case because everyone else is just swamped with all the standing around and doing nothing that they're doing. And on top of all of this, you've encountered a hostile race of aliens called the Kett, who don't seem to like us for some reason. Probably because we drive a Nissan Pathfinder or something, I don't know. Maybe they should pack it in as well. That was a bad joke. So the main purpose of Mass Effect Andromeda is to find somewhere where the races from our galaxy can settle down, as well as finding out what exactly the Kett's problem is. Now, apart from the bollocks side missions, of which I'll get to eventually, this all doesn't sound too bad. I really liked the direction this game was going in when it first opened up. I love the idea of spearheading an expedition into a galaxy that we know close to nothing about. Wait, what the fuck is that all about? Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the worst and best part of Mass Effect Andromeda. Sarah Ryder. Never before have I seen a character who behaved as strangely as she does. It's obvious that BioWare really went all out here in developing new facial animations, and I can tell that they were hoping that this would be like the new LA Noire, but Jesus Christ, look at this shit! I don't know anyone in real life who acts like this. Actually, I do now I think about it, and everyone I know thinks that this guy's strange as well. Also, do you want to know what I found out about her? Well, she's not just some generic character model as it turns out. In fact, she's based off a real-life model called Jada Rossi. I may have said that name wrong. Now let's get an image of the two of them up here just to compare. That's not even remotely close. What the f***, BioWare? I understand that your female protagonist doesn't have to look like a super hot supermodel, though now you have introduced me to my next crush, thanks for that. But if that's the route you're taking, then don't base her on a hot model. Also, try to make her look realistic, please. She looks like she's wearing a Bose Selector mask, for Christ's sake. Straight away, any immersion that this game was hoping to establish gets blasted out the window by a howitzer the moment you take one look at Sarah Ryder. She's a character who I just can't take seriously. Anything she says is going to go over my head, because instead of listening to what she's saying and trying to empathise with her plight, what I'm actually doing is staring at her face intently, hoping to see her do something weird. Here are the best ones that I managed to find.
father's dead. He made me his successor.
Alec is dead.
And I found all of this incredibly entertaining. You could even say that it had a mass effect. No, I'm not going to pull that line out of the bag. But do you want to know what the funniest thing about this issue is? Despite Sarah having the most bizarre facial animations that I've ever seen, no, seriously, if I was to do a top 10 list on strangest facial animations, Sarah Ryder would win it hands down. In fact, she'd take all 10 entries, that's how strange it is. But getting back to it, despite the crap that she's pulling, none of the other characters show any emotions at all. Everyone stares at you with these cold, dead eyes, as if their soul's been sucked out of them during cryosleep.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
No, it looks like your face has just been injected with a truckload of Botox all in one hit. Either your facial muscles are paralysed, or you left all the fucks you could give back in the Milky Way. But as the new prisoner sent to the rest of the block, that's enough facials for now, so let's move on to something more wholesome. Now, bad facial animations, or lack thereof, can be forgiven, providing of course that the characters in question have interesting personalities. We remember many characters from old games even to this day because of how colourful or deep they were, not because of how they looked, even during the days of no facial animations. And once again we find Mass Effect Andromeda lacking. Everyone who hangs around you is either totally dull, come across as if they've just come off a factory line, or are simply unfunny. I played this game for around 15 hours, and I can only give you the names of 3 characters. One of them is Sarah, who I've already mentioned. Liam, for one, can fuck off. Blunt humour can be humorous if used correctly, but if what you're saying is crap, then it doesn't matter how blunt you are, you're just gonna come off as a Melvin. And finally Phoebe, who... Oh wait, that's not right. Hang on a second, let me look this one up. Oh, PB. Right. See, even then, the third character who I could sort of remember, and I got her name wrong. That just shows you how much of an impact she had on me. And even with these 2 side characters and everyone else who joins in, none of them felt as if they contributed anything to the story. It just felt like they were there and that was about it. The Krogan, can't remember his name, was okay to begin with because he was tough and didn't take shit from anybody, but this character trope is continuously shoved down our throats in the same way a small child desperately wants you to acknowledge the drawing it's made, and his character never evolves from that. After 10 hours I was all like, he's tough. I get it. You can stop reminding me now, thanks. And then we move on to the gameplay. Now, considering that we've got a big open map that may in fact be slightly bigger, or possibly the same, I'm not sure, than that of the original Mass Effect games, and that there are several planets you can land on and do stuff on, proper stuff mind you, none of that fake stuff that Mass Effect 1 promised us with. And considering that we're a Pathfinder, and we're supposed to be exploring planets, doesn't this give you the impression that the gameplay is going to be sweet? I hope it is, because if so, then I can look past everything else. Nope, it's totally dull! It's like they've taken the planet exploring from Mass Effect 1, easily the worst part of the game, and gone nuts with it! Now we're back to driving around in a vehicle that doesn't really do much outside of going from point A to point B, and deploying a mining drill that does all the work for you. But don't worry, because there's plenty to do, such as driving around the map, collecting 3 items, and then bringing them back to a dude who pretends that he's grateful for it. Or you could drive to one place and scan an object, which will let you drive to somewhere else to scan another object, which will let you drive to somewhere else to scan another object, which will let you drive to somewhere else to scan another object, which will let you drive to somewhere else to scan another object, and after all of that you can go back to a dude who pretends that he's grateful for it. Is this part of the video turning you off by any chance? Well, imagine feeling that whilst playing a game, and there you have it, Mass Effect Andromeda outside of main story missions. In terms of combat, the original Mass Effects managed to improve upon it during the course of the series. Number 1's combat was alright, but there was room for improvement. Number 2 did it well, and number 3 was just as good. Mass Effect Andromeda's combat seems to have taken a step backwards, and now we're back to Mass Effect 1's combat. You don't really have a say in what your allies do in battle, aside from occasionally being allowed to tell them where to set up position. And no longer are we locked into one particular class of fighter, which I suppose is a good thing, because it allows us to select which abilities we want. But it does mean that you can't really put a name on the class you've created for yourself. I mean, what do you call a retarded Pathfinder who specialises in sniper rifles, assault rifles, shockwaves and invisibility? No, that wasn't a setup for a joke, and that wasn't actually a question either. However, we now have a crafting system, which also happens to be one of the most convoluted and pointless crafting systems that I've ever come across. To begin with, what the fuck is up with the user interface here? But anyway, if you wanted to craft a weapon, you first have to find it in the huge list of options that you have. Now these options aren't for weapons that you've found. No, this list contains every weapon in the game, regardless of whether you've come across it or not. Then you've got to research it, but that only gives you a blueprint of said weapon. Then you've got to go out and collect the necessary resources for it, and only then will you have crafted your desired weapon. Mass Effect, why did it need to be this difficult? I've also heard that this game was massively bugged when it first came out. Now, since then, there have been plenty of patches, and I can honestly say the bugs were at least one thing that I was fortunate enough not to encounter. I've also heard that a patch came out to improve Sarah Ryder's face, which I managed to uninstall because why would I want to change anything about how f***ed up she can look? I know I said this before, but this is the best part of the game for me. Just seeing what weird expression she's gonna pull next. But ultimately, I just couldn't finish this game. And this pisses me off. I'm the sort of person where, if I get a game, regardless of how good or bad it is, I have to complete it no matter what. But this game just didn't do it for me. I got to one point where I'd done so many quests involving going to some place and scanning an object, that I just felt that this was the best this game had to offer. It sort of reminds me of Kingdoms of Amalur, where you have a ton of generic fetch quests thrown in your face. But that game got away with it to some degree because the combat was awesome and there was lots of it, so you're being entertained outside of what the quest is asking you to do. In contrast, Mass Effect Andromeda gets you to do boring shit as well, but there's no filler. Nothing to keep me ticking over and having fun all the while. What, is driving around an open map where you're constantly taking radiation damage really that fun? Is the combat really that fun? I don't think it is, if I'm honest. And eventually, I realised that even if I were to dedicate another 15 hours to this game, there's a very good chance that I'll still feel the same way as I do now at the end, and would probably think that I just wasted all of that time. I'm pretty sure that 15 hours worth of time spent in this game is enough to get an idea of what it's like as a whole, and to be honest, I'm fairly certain that I'm not missing out on anything by not playing it. The only thing I'll be missing out on is more of Sarah Ryder's shit, meaning that the only thing that could convince me to keep playing is a negative factor about the game. And it was at that point that I realised that I just can't keep playing. I'm getting nothing out of this game, so that's it. I don't know, maybe one day I'll go back and finish it just for the sake of finishing it, but that day is not today, I'm afraid. In conclusion, Mass Effect Andromeda isn't a terrible game, I want to make that clear. It doesn't exactly mess anything up, and aside from the strange faces, it doesn't make any major mistakes. It doesn't really do anything wrong. However, it also doesn't do anything right. I can't honestly say that any part of it was bad. The combat was passable, the story was average, the characters were unconvincing or bland, but they weren't irritating. The setting and atmosphere wasn't exactly impressive and nothing really jumps out at you, but at the same time, it wasn't like any of it sucked. But that's the problem. Nothing really grabs your attention here. Everything is either okay or dull, which makes this game a mediocre title. And considering the abysmal facial animations, then I'm going to have to give this game a 4 out of 10. I honestly can't recommend this to anyone, and unless you're a huge Mass Effect fan, then you're probably not going to think much of this game either. I guess at the end of the day, what we can take away from this game is that, in space, no one can hear you derp.
Sometimes I think this life is killing me.